talked to several of you, and I know in a group that is evokes inner considering. Inner considering is this phenomena of being identified with consciousness, being identified with these thoughts and feelings about, oh, what they think of me? Oh, it was stupid what I said. Come on, I have nothing to say. They are more evolved than me. Who am I to speak? Fear, anxiety, worry about what other people think about me, which can take the form before speaking, as a not speaking, or editing, or trying to be perfect in what I'm going to say, or it takes the form after we speak, like stupid. And then it can take the form after the meeting. We can have days of rehashing that. And so this is very common and natural, and we all have it to some degree, maybe very little, or it can be very little in a sense of like, or it can be really intense with voices. And so part of self-observation, part of our work here is to notice that, so notice that in the group. And the idea of all of these patterns, these are patterns of false personality, patterns of imaginary sense of me, mechanical patterns. So the attitude about any patterns is to not judge them, to be curious about it, like an interesting, curious stranger. Watch out for this. Oh, God damn it, I'm inner considering again. Oh, man. Not to be upset about what we observe. And we can't change it much, but we can just witness it and even use it as because it's uncomfortable. So it's uncomfortable. So whenever there's something uncomfortable, we can use it as a reminder to be more conscious of what's happening. So we need to first observe these things for a long time. And just the observing of them, we are a little bit less sucked into it. Then you are informed, especially you catch yourself after the meeting. You're like, whenever you catch yourself, you're like, oh, wow, that's inner considering. This is interesting. And if you can drop it, it's imagination about oneself and all that. Drop it, but not like, oh, God damn it again. It's more like drop it and use the fact you catch yourself to remind yourself to be more here. So it becomes that which keeps us asleep can wake us up now. So I wanted to bring awareness to this.
And when you finish that thought, I want to add something about that inner considering feeling.
And to observe it also in the moment, because it's like a state and we are identified with it, and it's like a state. So it's good to investigate this state in the moment, to break it down into, there's a queasiness in the belly, there's a contraction here. I catch myself trying to really be very planned about what I'm going to say, not to sound stupid. So observe it like as if somebody's paying you like $5,000. So that at the end of this meeting, you can write a detailed report. Oh, when she said this, I noticed that, and then this thought came, and there was a little palm sweating, and so by the studying of it, we are less identified with it.
What I was going to say is it was stimulated by something Mihai just said. Do you know, in the moment when we are inner considering, we feel like I'm inner considering. And then what will happen if maybe later, like after this gathering or something, and you will realize you were inner considering, and you'll be inner considering about the fact that you did something or said something a certain way. And in the moment, it feels like me, but in those retrospect moments, when you see that, it's a good way to see that it's the imaginary idea of ourselves that is inner considering. That's what that is. We have this imaginary idea, and it is under threat somehow. It feels it's under threat, that it's always being tested, always being measured, always being watched. And But in the moment, it feels like me, but in retrospect, often, you know how, I'm sure you've had that feeling, you're somewhere and you go, oh, it's like I said that and like, oh, what did, And if it's sort of like you can turn and look at that, like you're looking at your imaginary picture of yourself. That was the imaginary sense of you. That's the imaginary sense of yourself reacting then and later. And it comes up like a wave, and it's a good opportunity to see that. It's not, our being does not our truest core being does not interconsider. It does not, it's not about that. This is all the imaginary sense of me that's experiencing this spasm of interconsidering. And I mentioned to someone, that's a nice way to think of it. Don't feel like I am interconsidering. Try to realize it's not I, it's not the whole of me. It's just a part of me is having like a spasm, instinctive, emotional, but it's not the whole. And this can help sort of distance the sense of being the observer of it from the phenomenon. This is self-observation. But to do that, you also have to be remembering yourself a little bit, yes? To know that you're observing. We need to be there. Like Gurdjieff said, what are your observations worth if you're not remembering yourself when you make them?